Hello there. My name's Nick Startin. I'm the chair of UACES, which is the University Association of Contemporary European Studies, and it gives me great pleasure to be able to talk to you today. Title of the talk is How to Make the Right Choice of EU Studies. So I'm going to be talking to you a little bit today about that. Where you should go, what kind of course you want to study. We'll try to explore some of those ideas this morning. I've put together a very basic PowerPoint today, which basically consists of one slide only. I thought it was better to talk to you directly rather than just keep clicking through PowerPoint slides. I'm sure we've all seen enough PowerPoint slides over the last few months in the virtual lockdown. It's sad that I'm not able to be in Brussels delivering this talk where we would normally be doing this, but events mean that we're having to do this online, and I'd like to just begin by congratulating the organisers for getting this all sorted as an event. It looks a really exciting event and seems to have transferred very successfully to the virtual world. So I was going to talk around those 6 headings. I was going to do a little bit of blatant self-promotion about what is UACES and tell you a little bit about what UACES is. I was then going to talk a little bit about what the discipline of European Studies is. What is European Studies? Then I was going to talk for a little while about why you should consider doing a course in European Studies, whether that be at undergraduate or at master's level. And then a little bit more about how you should go about choosing the course, where you should go, what kind of course, and I will try and sort of lead you through some advice which might help you to make that choice. Then what should you do at the study fair today and tomorrow? And then what next? What lies ahead for you afterwards once I've done that? So I'm going to talk for about the next 12, 13 minutes. And I don't intend to spend more than a couple of minutes on each of those headings. And then we'll have a little bit of time for some Q&A afterwards at the end so that you can ask me some questions following on from what I've said. So first up then, what is UACES? Well, we are an interdisciplinary membership association, and we have over 1,000 members. They're mostly academics, but we also have some practitioners that are members of our association, and we have membership from over 50 different countries. We're UK-based, but we really do have a European and a global reach. Last September, we were hoping to host our 50th annual conference, and that was supposed to be in Belfast. But unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we had to run a virtual event, which was nevertheless very vibrant. And we're hoping to, we're still waiting to find out whether we can host a hybrid event in September or whether we'll have to revert to a virtual one. UACES is a very vibrant association, I think, for early career researchers. We have a very vibrant graduate forum, and we host an annual graduate forum conference. So if you're interested in European studies as a discipline, and in particular EU studies, then I would urge you to take a little look at the kind of things that we could offer you. So perhaps think about joining. We have a student membership, which is £25 for 1 year, and that gets you a whole host of advantages that might help you as you look to shape your career in EU studies. You get discount on a range of UACES events. You can apply for small grants. You're eligible for travel support for selected events. There are UACES scholarships. You have access to our members' email list and a whole load of discount on a range of books that might help you with your European Union or European studies moving forward. So that's a little bit about what UACES is. The marketing section of the talk is now over, and I'll move on to what is European studies. Well, European studies is a fascinating discipline, I think. It's an interdisciplinary field of study that focuses on current developments really in European integration. So it's both interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. And it offers a combination of various subjects, political science, public policy, international relations, European history, law, economics, and sociology. It's very much a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary concept, European studies. And the common theme is obviously Europe. And more specifically, in the case of everybody, I think, who's come to this fair, EU studies. So that's a little bit about what European studies and EU studies are. I'd now like to talk about why you should consider doing a course which incorporates European studies. I would argue that never, ever has there been such an exciting time to consider studying Europe, and more specifically the European Union, than there is today. It's crucial, I think, because the European Union is literally the interplay between European nation states and its relationship with the wider world, and the wider global world, be that economically, politically, or socially. So it's a really exciting time, I think, to be thinking about studying European studies as part of your degree or master's. So whether it's policy that interests you, it might be EU policy that interests you, the Eurozone, security policy, environmental policy, foreign policy, social policy, the common agricultural policy. That's a lot of policies in one sentence. If it's any of those or all of those that interest you, then I think, you know, European studies at the moment, it's a really fascinating option for you. There's so much to study at the moment, and it's not just policy. The wider, bigger picture of the reform agenda that we hear so much about is particularly topical and pertinent at the moment. And it might be that it's the EU governance question that really interests you. How does the European Union actually operate? How does the European Union actually work in terms of governance? How does the EU, or how should the EU, connect with its members, connect with its citizens? How democratic is the EU? What could the EU do to democratize itself further? These are fascinating questions that scholars of the European Union need to be addressing, I think, over the next years and decades. It might be that contestation of the EU is what interests you, and that's actually my area of research. My area of research has been built over the last 20 years around the theme of Euroscepticism, which sadly, in many ways, has become more topical. Gosh, it might be Brexit that interests you. I couldn't avoid referring to it, I guess, here in the UK, and also as a UK national. Whatever it is that interests you about the European Union, there is so much to get your teeth into in terms of the academic side of it, whether it's political science, sociology, international relations, EU policy. There's so much stuff going on at the moment that I would really urge you to think about including it as part of your undergraduate or master's studies. So that brings me on to the fourth heading, which is how to choose a course in European studies, or a course which may not have European studies in the title, but may also incorporate European political modules and that kind of thing. It's very tricky. It's a bit of a minefield out there. As you will see, there are multiple institutions who are signed up for this study fair, and they're all wanting to tell you why their course is the best course to study. And all of the courses that I'm sure they have to offer have something really unique about them. So what should you do? What are the variables that you should consider when you're thinking about choosing an undergraduate or a postgraduate course with European studies incorporated? Well, I think you have to ask yourself the question, what's important to me? What am I trying to get out of this? I think the first thing that you might want to answer is, am I specifically interested in the European Union, or am I interested in the more general interpretation of European studies that might move beyond just the EU? And that's one way of looking at trying to sort out where and what you might want to do. And then I think you should ask yourself, what is my motive for studying European Union studies? Do I want to do something very vocational, very specific, that's related to the European Union institutions, to the EU bubble? And if you do that, I think there are certain courses that you should be considering. Or is it something more general that you want, which keeps your career paths and career options open? So I think those are the kind of questions you should ask yourself. What are your motivations for studying EU studies or European studies? And once you've kind of worked that out, then I think you start to think, where am I going to do this? Which country, which city? Do I want to be close to the EU bubble? Do I want to study in Brussels? Do I want to study in Belgium? Do I want to study in the Netherlands? Do I want to go over to the UK? In spite of Brexit, there are still a number of very good courses being offered in European studies in the United Kingdom. Do I want to go further afield, perhaps to Central and Eastern Europe, to study European issues? So think about where you want to go. The city in question might be something that attracts you, and I think that is important. But I think more important, and even more important than the institution itself, is what does the department look like where I want to study European studies or EU studies? And a way of trying to work that out is to delve quite deeply into the kind of courses that they offer by going on their websites and looking at the programs that they offer. And I would advise you to drill down even to what modules they offer. Are these the kind of modules that I want to do as part of an EU or European studies program at undergraduate or postgraduate level? Another question I think you should look at is, what are the employability prospects? Where's this going to lead me? What is the university going to do in terms of helping me as I move forward to choose my career at a later stage? And an important part of that is, does this course include a placement year if it's an undergraduate course, or if it's a master's course, does it include some opportunity to go on some kind of placement, whether that be specific to EU studies or the EU bubble or something more general, politically, socially? Check what the placement year has to offer. Employability is a massive thing these days, and I think you should check that out in terms of when you're looking as to which course you should choose. And yes, I guess, and I'm not a massive fan of league tables, but it is worth looking at the league tables to see how the courses rank, and drilling down a bit deeper to look more specifically at which aspects of the league table particular institutions have done well in. Is it employability? Is it the delivery of the courses, the teaching? Look at those kind of details, I would suggest. One thing I would say is, don't just presume that I need to go to a really big city, a big institution, a prestigious institution. My experience of 20 years in academia is that actually there are some smaller institutions out there that are doing, you know, really innovative things and have got some great courses. And I know I looked through some of the institutions that are there today that have their virtual stands, and there are some very good small institutions, places like the Europa Institute in Saarland, the University of Surrey in the UK, I think ESPOL in Lille, and various others, Basilius College in Brussels. There are some nice smaller institutions that perhaps can give you a more tailor-made package and can also kind of look after you perhaps more in terms of the sort of welfare and pastoral side. So don't just automatically be drawn to the big major institutions. There are a lot of really good smaller institutions out there doing great courses in EU studies and European studies related subjects. That's not to say that there are also some fantastic institutions that are very well known, prestigiously well known, where you should also consider. So, what should you do today? What should you do today at the study fair? Well, I think, look, there are some fantastic universities here today, some fantastic departments. This is a unique opportunity for you as a student to ask questions about the courses that you might be interested in. So about the content, It could be about fees. It could be about anything. But today is the day, I think, for you to really ask those questions. So my advice to anybody who is taking part in the study fair today is don't be shy. Ask questions. Do please ask questions. Your degree or your master's course choice is a huge decision. So equip yourself with all the information that you are looking for before you decide. And today is a great opportunity, and tomorrow as well, to ask those questions. And if you don't get a chance to ask all of those questions, then follow it up. Send some emails, check out the websites. You'll find a lot out about how efficient a university is if you email them and find out whether you get a response to your questions. So that's what I think you should do at the study fair. And in terms of what next, when you've had a close look at some of the institutions here today, follow it up so you make sure that you ask the right kind of questions. So as chair of UACES, I really hope that you choose a degree or a master's program that has European studies and EU studies at its core. And just to reiterate my first point, I don't think there could be a more exciting time in the history of European integration to embark on some kind of undergraduate or postgraduate study that has EU studies central to it. I'll stop there, and I'll look to take some questions. I think we still have about 13 or 14 minutes left, so I didn't overrun. So are there any questions? Thank you. I'm just looking in the chat. So that's some good questions there, aren't there? What career path could anyone follow after a master's in European studies? Well, I think there are a number of things here. Obviously, you could go down a traditional academic route and look to build on that with a doctoral thesis, and perhaps then become a university lecturer or become a postdoctoral fellow, and really sort of take a kind of research path, an academic path. You could, with a master's in European studies, certainly look to take a more practitioner pathway, which would be perhaps working in the European Union, part of that in one of the European Union institutions, or a related institution or think tank or something similar to that. But I also think a master's in European studies is a very good general master's, actually, because it does flag up that you will have skills in many different disciplines, whether it's politics, IR, sociology. It will show that you have, some key core social science skills that I think would be very strong in the workplace generally. So I think, those are the three things I'd say. It could be an academic career, it could be a more of a practitioner career, or I think it's great for leaving open your options for a more general career. Is a master's in EU studies a good path towards a career in international organisations? I would say yes, it is, definitely. I think it's a particularly strong career path if your interest in international organisations has a kind of European focus centrally to it. But yes, indeed, I would say that EU studies is a good path towards a career in international organisations. I come from the Eastern European, somebody said, from Romania. Alexandra, thanks for your message. Do you think the small countries have the money and resources to create innovative? I mean, I think there are some very innovative European Union programs across Eastern Europe. In many of the EU Central and Eastern European capitals. I think actually that the discipline of European studies is very healthy actually in Central and Eastern Europe. And I think it's something where there's a lot of interest amongst the student community in those countries. So I think I would sort of say, yeah, definitely explore some of the programs in the Central and Eastern European countries, which are on offer in European Union studies related areas. I would definitely say so. Question 4 is, I think, a question that's been asked to me. How do we distinguish if a small institution has a really good course? That's a really good question, isn't it? I think you have to ask a lot of questions. I think you have to really drill down and look at what the modules are that they offer. I think you should try to get a discussion going perhaps with the admissions tutor there, so you can ask them these kind of questions. But yeah, that's a really tough question to answer. There are definitely some very good smaller institutions that offer some great courses and, you know, have a very homely, supportive feel. So yeah, it's a difficult one, weighing up, you know, whether to go down that smaller route or to, you know, look at the more fully internationally recognized established institutions. So that's a difficult one. And I think you will know from asking questions to the relevant people, I think, where you probably might end up going in that respect. So that's a tough question to answer. I don't know whether there are any more questions. I can't see any more questions, so I'm going to ask. Oh, there is a one. Okay, great. I'm in my last year of law, and I will take a master's degree in European and Global Studies. Inside that, okay. I have to choose some subjects. This is a long one. Hang on a second. Okay, somebody's asking me there to sort of recommend, I guess, particular institutions. I'd be very happy to take that discussion offline with the person that's sent it and have a chat with them. So question 5, if my colleague from UACES, Melina, would like to get the details, I'd be happy to talk around the question you ask. There's another question. That's a really good question here. Thank you for the talk. I'm a final year student at LSE, and given the LSE's reputation in European studies, I'm wondering if it's better to apply for a master's here, or would it be more beneficial to go to a different institution to broaden my perspective? That's a very good question indeed. I think there are pros and cons of staying at the same institution. Sometimes, you know, you might get a fee discount if you show loyalty to your host institution from the undergraduate days. There could be some employers that would say it doesn't show a huge ambition if you do stay at the same institution. But ultimately, I think it's for you to decide whether, you know, you're comfortable there. And if you think that the program is offering you something that will build on your current undergraduate program, then I don't see a problem with you staying at the same institution. But that said, I would say it's worth exploring other institutions before you make that final decision. Somebody else has asked a question. Scrolling down, the questions are flying in now. I'll do my best to answer as many as I can in the time. I did a bachelor in EU studies and I'm highly interested in IR diplomacy. Sorry, it keeps moving because new messages come in, so I'm struggling to read it. Do you have any personal tips for a perfect uni for that? Do you think this is a good way to end up in IO? I would love to end up in an international organisation. Yes, okay. Again, I would that kind of question, I'd be happy to take up question 7 as offline as an individual discussion, if that's okay. At perhaps some stage tomorrow, that would suit me if you wanted to get in touch. I'm currently studying an LM in European law that is focused on EU law. Do you think that enrolling in a new LLM program that is focused in EU law could be a good idea to complete and foster my profile? I think it could. I think that could be quite a good thing to do, to foster your profile in a pretty competitive academic and job market. I think that that would be quite a good idea. The next question is, can someone not from the EU work in international organizations in Europe, considering if he or she has already taken a master's degree in European related fields? Yes, I don't think it rules you out from working in other institutions at all. I think it could certainly be seen as a positive development. So I think that's not an issue. Looking at the next question, which European university do you suggest for a master's in EU studies, which is a good path towards a career in international organisations? To be honest, there are a lot of very good institutions that could be that you could consider for that. And I think it'd probably be a bit unfair in my role as chair of UACES to single out any particular one, but there are certainly some very good institutions at the study fair today that I think you could talk to with regards to that. How did I know? This is a nice question. How did I know whether this was the right field for me? Oh, well, that's a very existentialist question, isn't it? I think I did languages and European studies as an undergraduate, and then I did French studies as a master's, and then I did a PhD in European politics. So I just think I was very wanting to explore more about the EU, more about Europe. My profile was back before the Maastricht Treaty, showing my age a little bit there, back in the late 80s when I did my degree. And that was a very exciting time in the evolution of the EU. And nothing has changed my mind on that. I still think it's a really fascinating set of institutions to be studying. For a postgraduate, would you recommend a master's or a PhD in European studies? Question 12. Depends what you want to do. I think if you want to go down the academic route and you want to think about being a lecturer or a researcher or a postdoc, I think you will need to do a PhD. If you're not sure at this stage, I would suggest that you do a master's. You can always buy into a PhD after your master's. Question 13, is a master's in EU studies an adequate preparation for a career at a national foreign affairs office, or would you recommend a more general master's in IR? That's a good question. I think it probably might depend a little bit on the country in question where you're looking to get the job. Perhaps a master's in IR that had quite a lot of options related to European politics and European international relations and European security might be a good option for that particular pathway. Question 14, which European universities do you suggest for a future in international organisations and international relations such as the United Nations or the European Commission? Yeah, I think I'm probably not going to answer specifically about individual institutions. I think that's a little bit unfair for me to do that. But as I said before, I think there are some really good institutions here today which you should explore that question with. Which are the more internationally recognised prestigious institutions? Well, I think you probably get an idea for that if you look in some of the global league tables. There's certainly plenty of them here today at the study fair. How important is an internship in an EU institution prior to applying for a job? Well, I don't think it's essential and I don't think it's vital, but I think an internship in an EU institution or a related institution or related think tank or a related practitioner organisation is a very strong thing to have. I think it's a very good thing to have. So I think an internship is something that is well worth exploring. It is something that on your CV will help you to secure a future job. So yeah, internships, and I hope that, they are in the majority paid internships of some description, are very useful in terms of making your CV look stronger, taking you beyond just the academic side of stuff, but showing that you've got that practitioner experience as well. Listen, we've got 2 minutes left. Margot, who has organised this talk, is holding up a sign which says 2 minutes. I've really enjoyed talking to you this morning. I hope I've helped you a little bit to think about what you could do moving forward in terms of your EU studies at undergraduate or master's level. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to answer some of those questions specifically about which institutions to recommend. So I'm sure over the course of today and tomorrow, you will try and visit as many of the virtual stands as possible. And going back to something I said in the talk, I really highly recommend you to ask questions. Don't be shy. The people are there to answer your questions on the stand. There's a great mixture of academics, marketing people, international officers. Ask the questions. Don't be shy. And I really hope that the rest of your EU Studies Fair goes well. And I hope that you end up where you want to end up. And I wish you all the best for your future academic and vocational careers. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.